And you're welcome back to the Voters Diary. So today I'll be having the discussion with two gentlemen. I have Salom Adonu. He heads our features and articles department here at City FM and City TV. Salom, welcome.
Thank you, Vivian.
And then I also have Godfred Boafo, Akoto Boafo. If you know, you know. Some call him Akoto, but if you know, you know. He is the head of current affairs here at City TV and City FM. Akoto, welcome.
Vivian, it's good my lawyer is in studio this afternoon.
Does your lawyer know why you are called Akoto?
No.
You haven't even told him. What are you doing?
Lawyer client.
Privileges. Okay, me, I know why.
He'll be in touch with you.
I'm waiting for you.
But it's a pleasure to be here, Vivian.
It's good to always have you guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. So yesterday you were here with us. Salom was watching us from afar. So of course it was part of the discussion in spirit. But welcome, guys. Yesterday we started discussion on Nkrumah. We looked at his 7-year plan, development plan, some of the challenges he had to face, what he had to put in place. But we didn't conclude that discussion. Still with the challenges and looking at some of the things he could have done to make it a better plan and all that. So today I want us to wrap up with that, and then we'll come and look at our current day situation, what we can glean from the Nkrumah story and how we can improve what we're doing, and also bring in the two major political parties because they have run the affairs of the country after Nkrumah and other successive governments. So if we can, let's start. We'll go first. Start with you and with the Nkrumah thing.
Yeah, well, you know, yesterday we did quite a good job on Nkrumah, but also just to offer some perspective and the lessons that we can draw. You know, yesterday I ended my submission on a quite controversial note when I said that. Well, it was actually two things. The one on the shoe factory, and then the other one.
To throw the question at you.
Yes. And the other one also on the timing of some of the things that Nkrumah did at the time that he did them, in terms of what the economic policy was at the time, if it was the best. Now, if you look at what Nkrumah tried to do, and it's important that, again, we situate it. Nkrumah his agenda was simply to industrialize. It wasn't simply about building a competitive economy of any sort. His agenda was, how do we industrialize within 7 years, move the country from point A to point B. Now, at the time that he came in, and it's really interesting to look at some numbers that I'll run through for you. The agenda started in 63 to 70, which was a 7-year development plan. This was the state of industry in the country. So, for instance, wholly state-owned was at 11%. The joint private ownership was joint state-private ownership was at 7%.
So state-owned 11%.
Yes.
The joint JV
was at 7%.
7%.
And private ownership at the time was 80%.
80%.
At 62.
Okay.
Now, by 66, which was 3 years into the policy, we had the wholly state moving to 19%, the JSP moving to 12%, and private ownership reducing. At its peak, between, let's give it, say, 65, 66, wholly state owned was at 36%.
It had shot up.
That shot up. The joint state private ownership was now dominant. It was at 51%.
51,
and private ownership had dwindled to 7%.
Just 7%?
Yes. So you can see the progression that he went through. So the focus became the wholly state owned and the joint state private ownership kind of thing that he was running.
The private bit of it, were they the locals, or he was still going with the foreign?
He was still going with the foreign entities at that particular point in time. So you could see what the agenda was at the time. Now, social equity is something that was also at the height of what he wanted to do. It was his main agenda. Okay, so for him, the ideology was, let us industrialize, let us make sure that we can pull people along. And by this is the spirit of what he wanted to do. We can discuss the implementation of it, because the implementation had significant flaws that led to the demise of the agenda. But it was one, to get the social equity. So you had the national placement of these industries as well, to create jobs for people. If somebody in Bolga could grow tomatoes, that person was not interested in coming to Accra to come and look for a job here, because that person had a job. That person living in Kumasi doing shoes could stay there and do this. The person helping growing sugarcane to feed the alcohol industry that York was in.
So mainly the industrialization.
Exactly.
But also at the time, there were the issues of the classes in terms of higher up there, and then a lot of masters on the low side.
Yes.
Was he looking at inequality as well, bridging that gap as well?
Certainly, it was. That's what I'm saying. He was looking at creating social equity. Okay, so the ideology of what he wanted to do, if you juxtapose that with what we've gone through in our political history and looking at the industrialization agenda of different political parties, you would realize that we've gone through all that to a point where now we are running a free market type of thing, even though we are pretending that we are running some sort of social equity agenda as well. Because once we get to the era that we are in, you realize that perhaps now might be the time to go as protectionist as Nkrumah was. But the market is very, very open for everybody. Now is the time where somebody might say, okay, Vivian Kai has started a company. What kind of policies do we build towards supporting this company that she has built so that this person becomes the leader and then can move a section of the people along? So these were the facets of the industrialization agenda that we ran through. And for Nkrumah, I'm sure post the failure of what he did, and it's a myriad of things. The economy didn't help him. For instance, I look at the Volta River project and the fact that so much was hinged upon it. Unfortunately for him, at the time we also discovered the same product in other countries. Where was your advantage? And a few years after that, we even discovered larger quantities of bauxite in Kibi or Chebi. Whichever one you prefer. Okay, but here it was. The product was on the market for cheap. We couldn't do much with it here, so we realized that that agreement between Kaiser, Valco, and all those things went down, and that was supposed to be the heart of the industrialization agenda. And once that went down, we realized that okay, there was a problem. Now, the market itself as well, you know, whilst the state participation, the state-owned enterprise section grew, his emasculation of the private sector also had a price to pay, because there was a significant diversion from growth in the real sector to focusing on what he wanted to do. So it got to a point you didn't even have the inputs to feed
the agenda.
Okay, and so the thing, the government will say, at the point, you know.
So implementation, he had
implementation was a bit of a problem.
With that, I think, Salam, I will take your initial remarks on his implementation, his challenges. Then we segue it to modern day terms. You know, people say that in Nkrumah's time, I mean, I don't know whether it's politically correct for me to say that the dictatorship helped him to set some agendas and run it. Also, the globalization and all that, if you compare that and this time, the dynamics are a bit different. So he was able to do what he did and all that. So we will go into that. But I'll take your initial remarks, Salom, and then we look at present day term and then Nkrumah's.
Yeah, thanks, Vivian. Very insightful discussion. Anytime the name Nkrumah comes up, you know, you can be sure that the discussion will be very insightful. I think Nkrumah stood for a number of things. So anytime Nkrumah comes up, I tend to situate the discussion in the context of that independence speech he gave. So in my view, a lot of the things he sought to do, first of all, was to change the minds and attitudes. I mean, change the mindset of people, because he was in a hurry to take the country from the place it was to another place, you know, purely agrarian economy at the time, and he was in a hurry to quickly industrialize the country. He tried to do some, but of course the implementation, like Godfred was talking about, you know, obviously, you know, provided some challenges. Perhaps it could be due to the model he chose, you know, the fact that he heavily invested state funds into industries, etc. And if you look at how some of these things work, anytime the state heavily invests in areas like that, you know, there's bound, usually you find out that there is inefficiency, there's low morale, etc. And when you don't work that out well, you know, it's just a matter of time and all these will crumble, because the people do not, their profit motive is not there, the inefficiency and a whole lot of things. So over time, the inefficiency, you know, breaks down the system. And so those factories, it wasn't for any reason that those factories after a while became, not so productive. And so there was a need to increase private sector participation, etc. So that moves from this economic model of purely socialist and protectionist, if you like.
But this private sector involvement thing, we keep saying, oh, the state-owned, even the discussion, if you look at the state institutions and the attitude, if you compare that to the private sector attitude, the difference is quite vast. But shifting it into private participation to move the economy forward, over the period, has it really served the purpose that it should? And shouldn't it be time that we really look at how to deal with these state-owned institutions in a way that they yield the necessary results we're looking for?
Yeah, so a lot of it, again, is attitude. A lot of it is attitude now. What the purely private sector-minded person will do, when you're doing it in the public sector, you have to be careful, or you'll be looking over your shoulders. I said it the last time that, when you go to the public sector, in most of them, a job that about maybe 1 or 2 people will do in the private sector and do it efficiently. You go into the public sector, you realize that about 5-7 people are doing the same job, and they're not even doing it so efficiently. They get engaged in other, if you like, extracurricular things, which are normally away from the objective of the job. So those things are bound to happen. Perhaps a better mix would be a private-public partnership, the GSP kind of thing. Because in that sense too, the exploitation of the worker and the exploitation or the profit-mindedness is a bit reduced, because there's some equity, if you like, from the government side into things. So I think what is important is a good mix of the two, so that we're able to move forward properly.
Okay.
The role of government, I must say, we can't run away from. Government has a role to provide infrastructure. Government has a role to ensure that equity is promoted, and also to ensure the general macroeconomic stability. That is the role of government. So once government is able to do these things and a few other things, the environment becomes very favorable for business and industries to thrive. Not necessarily government itself, investing or building factories, etc. It hasn't really worked over in Ghana's history, an example for many other places.
Okay. Now, permit me, if I can, to go through some of the things is set up, which we have some still in existence. Some have moved into private hands. Some are still state-owned. They are functioning. There are challenges around them, but we still have. So, Akosombo Textiles, that is gone to private or public?
Yes, I think if you look at the enterprise map of Ghana, I wish I had that.
Yeah, we'll pull it up. Yes. Fred, if you can pull the enterprise map for us. So I'll just run through, and then those that we know offhand, we can quickly look at their viability now. So Akosombo Textile, Drapon Textiles of Tema Shipyard and Dry Dock, they've used to go on a lot of strikes and all that. So I think we have the answer. Tema Oil Refinery, States Fishing Corporation.
Yeah, we all know what's happening.
Yes, there. Valco. We know what happened with that. Even the banks. National Investment Bank is still there, but it has its own. Yeah. Ghana Commercial Bank is still alive and well. Agricultural Development Bank actually doing pretty well if you look at the banks.
And if you look at, GCB doing quite well now.
Yes.
Agri-Development Bank, because there's been some private participation in those.
Okay, so you're still sticking with the private.
No, there should be some private participation. I think the world largely is moved away from big government controlling things. The world really is moving towards, or is moved to a place where private sector participation is encouraged.
Okay, Ghana Publishing Corporation.
It's undergoing a bit of a surge. I think the past 2 years, the young man who has been given the job of running has done a good job. Yeah, so it really went down. But over the past 2 years, I must admit, it's found its way again.
Okay, Electricity Corporation of Ghana.
Yeah, well, its fortunes are mixed. We all know what happened until PDS came, and then where we are now.
Yes.
With
ECG.
Okay.
The issue about huge debt owed by government institutions, etc.
So we tried to privatize it, move it away, but we had to pull the brakes on that because of the issues that came with that. So Ghana Water and Sewage Corporation at the time.
The sewage angle doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So it became Ghana Water.
Ghana Water.
And
now our sewage system is in shambles.
Yeah, I think it went through a complete revamp. If you look at Ghana Water, it became Aquavitins, which was when it was 100% almost privatized, and then we went back to Ghana Water. But the sewage side, Tema tells you the whole story. They say from 1960 something, the system that was designed for 80,000 people, now dealing with almost 300,000 people. They don't know what to do with it.
Exactly. And it's a huge
It's an explosion waiting to happen.
National Management and Productivity Institute, that I never heard about, so I'm sure that doesn't exist. You know my favorite one?
Which one?
Ghana Airways Corporation.
They must not have Black Star Line. You know, and I gave you, yesterday I was telling you about Black Star Line, for instance, which at a point was moving 17% of Ghana's exports at the time. So we were doing some good business. Ghana Airways, again, and the thing with airlines is this, Vivian, till date, a lot of countries that run state airlines are struggling to deal with it. If you look at Kenya Airlines,
South Africa.
South Africa is brutal.
Everybody.
Namibia went through the same phase. Rwanda Air. Almost all the states, like Alitalia.
Alitalia is wrong.
For some reason, running.
I took Alitalia when I was in uni and route the UK through. Times have changed. So, you know, I was just going through this, just looking at some that we attempted to privatize, and we still had to move it back to the state, and some that are still state-owned, and then some that have collapsed totally. And looking at how we keep getting it wrong with the ownership. Those we still tried Salom's idea of doing the joint, still didn't work. Some, you know,
it always ends up becoming a matter of individual interest over the state interest. If you look at from Nkrumah and what happened, once Nkrumah was overthrown, you know, by the NLC, we had Buzia come in as well. He had a different, he was very free market. Okay, open up the market, so there was interest rates liberalization, there was this, there was that. But that also didn't work. And that is why, if you recall, that led to the devaluation of our currency by almost 90%, which actually led to Acheampong coming back in. And Acheampong came in and then restored some of the things that Nkrumah was doing. So I think under him, State Farms came back, a couple of other entities came back. He also brought back some of the restrictionist attitude that Nkrumah had. In fact, he came back and said that even the loans that Ghana owed at the time, he was not interested in paying. They should wait.
The famous Yentua.
He was interested in doing his own thing. Okay, but by that point, it had become years of bad habits and not enough time to fix those bad habits, and not being able to understand how these bad habits were affecting industry. So all the way from, say, the 70s up to 1983, which became a different phase when we started doing, Jerry started his ERPs and the SAPs, economic recovery programs, of the point, which perhaps one would say, to his credit, led to a bit of a turnaround at the time. Things were really a mess, and it accounts for where we are now in the declining industry and how we are now trying to climb up. Because if you count the years, Vivian, we take the lost, we can count them as lost years, if I'm not mistaken, from 70 to 1983, or even if we want to be real, let's take this, from 1970 to 2000. I think even that would be an even better measure, from 1970 to 2000.
Or maybe 93.
Okay.
93 will be fair.
Okay, that will be fair. To 93. to 93. Let's look at that.
Okay.
And look at what within that time, that is what, almost a 20-year time period.
20-year time period.
In the industrialization agenda of any country, what 20 years can do for you. You understand? And we lost those 20 years going through economic recovery programs, going through funding problems. The state entities that you have put out there, a lot of them were not working, so they were basically down. Agric was down. Services have somehow started, you know, rearing its head, but we're not making the kind of strides that would lead to a proper industrialization agenda. And that is where I feel those countries that we like to compare ourselves to now took the lead. That is where they overtook us within that 70 to 92 period, when we're busy dabbling around the Malaysia, the Singapore, all the people that we like to see,
etc.
That is when they decided that, okay, this is what we want to do. Look at the similarities, Vivian. In some of these countries, they also protected their markets significantly. But there was also a focus on making sure that leadership was accountable in whichever way. Okay, our situation was such that leadership was not accountable. Leadership became a cartel, okay, where deals were being taken from state entities to government leaders. They would take it, pay themselves big money, pass it through their back. Exactly. So by enriching the political elite, we killed the industrialization agenda of this country over a 20-plus period. During that same time, others had decided that, okay, if we are closing our borders and saying we are not importing this, or will not allow this country to bring in this, or dump these things, whilst we grow our own industrial base, those countries were able to somehow see those things through and have become the better for it, where globally, or I would say even gradually, I think that's what I'm gradually, they are now able to open up a bit more, but they opened up on their own terms.
But can we take that tough decision of, you know, shutting down some of the things that are coming in, and then also can we compete with the things that we are shutting out and giving the people the same thing? Can we take that hard decision?
It's a hard decision. I don't think it's a yes or no answer, but a mix of it will do. So, for example, look at the COVID times, for example. We did not have, in the beginning stages or early stages, we don't have access to hand sanitizer, we had run out of them. But the Ghanaian ingenuity set in. And so people began producing hand sanitizers at home. I didn't even know it was quite a simple thing to do, you know, at a raw level, you know, so that you can refine as you go. Like the professor at Academic City, is it Professor Bagalori, will tell you that when you are manufacturing something, the first few prototypes, you call them, don't really look nice. All that you are looking for is that the parts are working, so that after that the marketing guys, etc., will put it together and make it beautiful and marketable. So in the early COVID stages, we saw that. We saw people now beginning to do nose masks, etc. You know, the fierce urgency of the now, MLK calls it. If we are put to the test, I think we can do it. But you see, like Godfrey said, there's now some difficulty between the state interest and individual interest. One thing that helped Nkrumah was that Nkrumah was clear in his mind that he only stood for the national agenda. That's why, you know, I stand to be corrected. He died without owning a house on his own, and everything he did was in the national interest. The situation several years down the line has changed drastically. Now it appears it is the individual interest before the state interest. And a quick other point too. So the years Godfrey talked about, the early 70s to the early 90s. When you look at every country or even every entity, human being included, the teenage years of that individual or that thing is very critical. So as a human being, if a human being is growing, the key decision-making moments and when life could go bad really will be around the teenage years. So Ghana saw a lot of its difficulties and challenges with leadership, etc., in those teenage years when Ghana was barely 15, 17 years and growing into early adulthood. That was where we saw a lot of the coups, etc. So those things didn't help us. The military came in, did what they thought they were doing well, but in the end, ended up hurting the nation, etc. We retrogressed, largely. Now democracy came. So at the time we were busy, taking the gun, making coups, etc. Our contemporaries, the Malaysians, the South Koreas, the Hong Kongs, etc., were moving at a very fast pace. They had understood what their country needed. Leadership was accountable. They were efficient, and they tried to put in a lot of things at that time. So here we are. Getting independence, attaining independence almost around the same time with Malaysia, and history says Malaysia even came to Ghana to understudy a few things. Took oil palm from Ghana, went to plant, did all that, and today we look up to Malaysia, and indeed in Rawlings' time, Rawlings went to Malaysia to pitch ideas to investors because he said Ghana was a good destination. People we were at the same level with, we misbehaved along the line, and they took the lead. And now we go to them, asking them to come back to our country and invest. There's nothing wrong with investing. Of course, US can come to Ghana and pitch ideas to us to go and invest. But in our case, we had retrogressed so badly that we now saw them as a model that we had to follow. So a lot of it, I think, depends on leadership. If we are to do anything at all, we need to critically look at the leadership, the vision of Nkrumah, how focused it was on the national agenda and nothing else. The undivided attention on what he saw as the key elements of nation building, and he went for that. Even look at how, and you know, he even inherited a more difficult situation because he had to build a nation from the scratch.
Yeah.
Educational institutions, hospitals, etc. And he started doing those things one after the other. So he knew that before you industrialize, you needed, you know, technicians or people who were who had the technical know-how. And he had to find a way of training those people. So he set up the technical training institutions, the Cape Coast Technical Institution. A lot of those technical institutions, he set them up. And then that wasn't enough. He set up the KNUST so that their skills could be sharpened at the tertiary level, you know. And he was building the industry so that after you finish doing all that you're doing from the technical level, even if you don't want to continue, you can move into industry. You want to continue, go to tech because there's a place there for you, study and come back to industry. At the same time, too, he was. And you know, whilst he was doing that, he was building the research arm of the country because industry will need research to develop R&D, something we don't pay attention to in Ghana. He established key research institutions, CSIR and all its should I call them subsidiaries or the agencies, you know, doing various things, you know, plants research, animal research, etc. Just to feed, you know, information or research to industry. For industry to grow. So I think we really need to look at the Nkrumah model and see what is relevant this day and see what we can learn from it.
Yeah, the relevance and the circumstances for today. But let me take a quick, hold on with your thoughts on that. Please hold on with that. Let me take a quick break. You can join the conversation. Remember to add the hashtag Voters Diary via Facebook or Twitter, or send us a message via WhatsApp. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
I'm gonna make most of it. It's a beautiful day, a day to share with you. You'll make my world go round. It's really got me saying, nice girl.
NASCO, bring home happiness.
So yeah, welcome back to the Voters Diary. Thank you so much for staying with us. Let me take a few of your messages, then I come back to you guys on the circumstances and how we can get it right this time around. So this one says, please, you must invite Professor Kwame Addo, a developmental architect, to hear his views on industrialization in Ghana. And another says, hello, I like this show so much. It keeps me updated. Maxwell from Kumasi, you say, okay, Maxwell, thank you for joining us. So guys, the circumstances are obviously different. Some will say in Nkrumah's time was easier for him to do what he did. Now things have seriously changed. You can't just get up and do this, that. I mean, there's so much involved in that, isn't it?
No, it's not. You see, the thing is this. The history of our politics is what has put us here. We owe to, as a country, we owe too many people. We owe too many countries. We owe too many organizations. And in trying to wriggle our way out of that, we have dug further holes for ourselves as a country, in the sense that now, we like I said, we went through the ERP programs. You have to find a way. You have to find a way of letting the economy work if you wanted to find money. The only way you were going to get that money was further opening up, allowing FDI, whether you wanted it or not, allowing entities that otherwise you would not have allowed in to compete in industries that you know or you knew that your country on an ordinary day would be competitive in. So again, like I said, they lost years up to 92. Post 92 coming, trying to figure our way out in this is where the difficulty is, in the sense that Nkrumah then had to deal with the real politic of ideology. The competing interest was not profits necessarily at the time. It was simply a matter of East versus West. It was simply a matter of black versus white. It is more sophisticated now. Now it is profit. Be it on a state level, be it on an individual level, it is how much money are we making from this. That is how countries even gauge these things. But if you look at the countries that are making inroads, and I take a look at a country like Vietnam. If you look at the state of Vietnam now, Vivian, and Vietnam that was at war from 1960 what to what, broken down country, sets up and says, look, what is it that we can do here? Rice. We will grow the rice more than anybody else. We are not importing rice. Nobody's bringing anything here. They educate the populace to a certain level and realize that, okay, we are now competitive in IT. Okay, shut this down. Don't bring this technology here. We are doing A, B, C, D. Everything is homegrown here up to this point. If you are looking at today, one of the fastest rising economies in the world, you are looking at Vietnam. And you ask yourself, when Vietnam was fighting itself in a civil war, what were you doing here? Okay. There are a lot of countries. Let's take our next door neighbor, Nigeria. Nigeria has a myriad of problems. In fact, Nigeria is like the worst example you can show for this. A good, like to say you want to be like this, but in certain things,
I've never really heard anybody say they want to be like Nigeria. Excuse me, though.
You know, it is what it is. But the truth also is that Vivian, it got to a point. Nigeria was like, okay, we are underfed here. We need rice. We are not importing rice. We were here when they shut their borders.
Yes.
They didn't even tell us that they were shutting borders. They simply shut the borders and said, until we are able to deal with Benin, who have turned themselves into re-exporting experts and are giving us problems in our country, everybody else in the sub-region will suffer. Everybody in the sub-region suffered. We sent delegations upon delegations, spoke nice English. Nigeria did not budge. In Ghana, the problem is we lack principle. We lack spine. So everything is allowed in Ghana. Ghana is that one place where if we say we want to, we say we are doing what? Amended the Customs Amendment Act.
Yes.
Supposed to start when? Thursday. Last I heard it's been postponed. Because one segment of the economy says that this is how we make our money. If you touch this, you see, and it's not like the law came about because 3 people sat in a room and were happy. The law came about because there were significant problems. The law came about also because there is a part of the industrialization agenda that needs to be fixed. You need technology transfer. You need cheaper spare parts and all those things. How is it that if, typical example, and I like this one yesterday when I heard it, the VW, 60,000 Ghana cedis. There is no way you can convince me that if I ship a VW brand new from Germany to here, it will cost me 60,000 Ghana cedis.
No.
It will be more expensive. Shipping cost, price of the car, co-minini payments, the bribes I have to pay. When I put it together, it will not be 60,000 Ghana cedis. So there is no way you can convince me that if I can buy a VW in Ghana for 60,000, it is a poor idea. Are they employing Ghanaians? Yes.
Yeah.
Is the technology running away somewhere? No. You understand? So it comes to a point where a country must decide that this is what we want to do. And in doing this, we don't care what anybody else will say. We'll do it. I lived in Kenya for a while. Flowers. Flowers.
We get all our roses, orchids from Kenya.
You try. You try and show up at the Kenya airport holding a rose at the airport.
All the serious rose that you see.
I said you try. You just show up at the airport even with rose to enter the rose, unless you are buying it and leaving.
You cannot bring it in.
You understand? Because they understand that this is what feeds the country. It's the same with tea. Okay, so even the ones that we are competitive in, the cocoa, it goes out the way it wants to go. Okay, what are we doing about it? The gold, it goes out the way it wants to go. Is there a time where we can say that to grow this aspect of our industry at this point, to grow this part of the economy, to grow this part of the country for these people? For instance, we are saying, okay, our people in Bolga, the tomatoes from Burkina Faso is eroding. So we are not allowing tomatoes from Burkina Faso to come in for a while. Let us, for the next 2 years, sort out the tomatoes there. That means you have to fix the road that goes there. You have to fix the transport that goes there.
You must have enough to feed us.
Exactly. And see whether you are capable. But because perhaps the import license for the tomatoes, it is with some big man. So he says, okay, I beg, if you do this one, you have affected my business. It is this business that pays for the campaigns that we run here. That is the bane of our industrialization agenda.
Wow.
And also for me, just before Salom comes in, there's a significant dissonance, okay, between what the state wants to do and what private sector wants to do and where it wants to do. That is why, truth be told, I was a bit, the 1D, 1F is good, but when the 1D, 1F was conceived, and I still hold on to this opinion of mine, this was not how it was conceived. We heard it when it was conceived. It was to develop brand new industry in parts of the country that required it. Over a period of time, again, the reality of financing showed that perhaps it was not such a good idea. So they said, okay, we'll find partnerships.
Private partners.
And wherever they want to do it. So if the government's intention was that, okay, in Laura, we want to do this and this there, so far as the partner is not interested in siting that factory in Laura, Laura forget. Okay, so the development is not based on what the state wants to do to uplift its people from one point to the other or a certain long-term agenda. The industrialization agenda is simply based on what the private entity wants to do.
But you people say we should
what
do the
its margins will be for the next 3 or 4 years. All I'm saying is that is fine. But we must get to a point where our country, in pushing its industrialization agenda, sits up one day and says, look, rice, the people in Aveime and Keta and Co are doing great with rice. For the next 2 years, let us do. When we did the rice
operation, the rice campaign,
the Ghana rice campaign,
yeah.
Look at the significant movement. Meanwhile, we were supposed to be buying rice from Ghanaian farmers for the national buffer stock. We were not doing it. We were not doing it, but we were buying rice every single day. This is the largest purveyor of rice in the country, was refusing to buy rice at that time from Ghanaian farmers. If you, the person, and this was the state, it wasn't like some individual sitting in his house. This was the state which had the money to say, okay, for the next 1 year, my friends from Lebanon, my friends from Pakistan, my friends from India, my friends from China, wait, I want to buy the stock of company A, B, C, D that produces Ghana rice to boost their industry, to boost the investments that have been made so that they can reinvest. You went up there and ran that story of the people who had gone for loans based on the good year that they had. The following year, the people who were supposed to go and buy rice had given up because the state had decided to go and buy rice from their foreign partners again. How
Which
do they
comes
grow?
back to whether we can take those tough decisions. But hang on there, we'll move to that. And let Salom also give us his remarks on that.
I think, we're a nation of misplaced priorities. We don't appear to know what we want. So, for example, what can we do? Ghana, what can we do? We gave the example of Nigeria deciding to shut their borders because they wanted to produce rice for themselves and to be self-sufficient, if you like, in that respect. We've given other examples in Kenya, etc. What can we do, or what do we want to do? And so when we decide on what we want to do, then we can find out how we will do it. And the key point also is rallying support. But you don't just sit somewhere with a few people and say, this is what we want to do, and expect everybody to rally around you. No, there are people whose lives genuinely depend on the area you want to tweak, and it will affect them. So how is the engagement? So the issue about the salvage cars, etc., how was the engagement, and what other opportunities or openings were provided these people? So when you do all those things and you have the nation behind you, and again, back to Nkrumah's independence speech, he knew what was at stake and he knew what he wanted to do. So in that speech, he rallied and tried to have everybody behind him. He called on the chiefs, he called on the women, he called on everybody and told them that what was ahead was a lot of hard work. He knew that it was going to be difficult, but it was going to be worth it, not to quote him exactly. We need to, one of the tasks of leadership is to communicate and rally your people around you. If you can't rally your people around, then you don't have followers. The people follow you because they understand your vision. And what is our national vision? If you ask somebody in GS or even university that what is Ghana's national vision, what can they tell you? once we are not, we don't know anything like that, then it means we have no business, in wanting to achieve. So what will happen is that everybody just comes, an idea just comes, one D1F, let's do it.
Change, another
this,
one comes, they change.
So we are not developing in a coordinated manner. Everybody just doing their thing. Another government comes, decides what it feels are the priority areas and goes into them. With that, we can't develop. What really do we want to do as Ghanaians? What do we want? If we're able to make that decision, then what will be left will be to put in the steps or the goals or the
we have a
actions
national development planning commission. We went to sit down together, agree that we want to do ABC.
The plan or the vision must be clear. It must be something, when somebody is sleeping, you wake the person up, the person should be able to tell you something around. All these things we have, this midterm development, that's what the NDPC and Co do, the midterm development plan, which the constitution says they should do. So the GPRS 1, GPRS 2, GDSA or GSDA 1, 2. I mean, how many people understand those things? And in the end, what is the theme? What we so we it's like everybody's just doing something. There's no coordination. There's no coordinated effort to get us to a common place, and that's the problem. Once we're able to solve that, it will be easy for us. But until we solve that, we will be wallowing in this space where we don't really know where we are, and a lot of it comes from leadership. Another problem also is that we are quick to take credit for things. So instead of thinking of long term and thinking about something that will be beneficial to the nation in the end, we are in a hurry to take credit for things. So we don't do things which are necessarily essential for the country in the long term, but we want to do things which are quick and fast enough to give us credit, to make us win the next election, instead of making the nation, the country, the overall beneficiary or winner in the end.
Okay. Godfrey, before you come in, let me take I don't want to pack the messages, I want to spread them. So this is from Modifa Ate. He's in Buipe. He says, I think Kwame Nkrumah's achievements are better than the MPP and NDC in their manifestos. They are not even doing them. So this one. And he says, no one in Ghana is able to do those things. So hashtag City TV, hashtag Voters Diary, all the way. Keep on doing the good work for Ghana. God bless you. God bless you too. Emmanuel says, good afternoon, good job. All our problems in this country is about leadership, and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah will always stand tall among them. In my humble opinion, the rest are only providing lip-stroke fire service approach. Very pathetic, you see. Okay. Solomon says, countries like Singapore and Malaysia had strong men leading the nations to push the development agenda forward. And Nkrumah tried to be that kind of strong man, but we didn't allow him because people thought he was becoming too powerful. But in other jurisdictions, they allowed those people, and now they have huge development. Hashtag Voters Diary. This is Solomon in Botiano. And then, hello, City TV. Despite the fact that this has been my first time of watching the Voters Diary, I have come to an elation that the program is a nice one, of course. That is to say, keep updating me on some of the things I haven't even thought of. Keep the program running. Thank you very much. This is from Dr. Winfred in Akosombo. Hi, Doc. So, guys, interesting one. So, Winfred.
So, I'll now use the opportunity to enter the manifesto, the modern one.
Please do. And let's see what they got.
Yeah, so if I go to the People's Manifesto, I'll just do a quick one. Time is not on our side. Under trade and industry, there's domestic trade, there's export trade. So let me just run through a few line items, and then I'll focus on manufacturing for my purposes. So if you do trade and industry for domestic trade, it says that the next NDC government will work together with related sectors and stakeholders to increase demand for locally manufactured goods by encouraging the private sector to establish marketing companies to service local SME manufacturers, assisting SMEs to upgrade tech to enhance their competitiveness, actively promoting made in Ghana goods, directing ministries, departments and agencies to patronize made in Ghana goods, modernizing our markets using the KJTR market complex model. Then it talks about export trade, and then manufacturing. The next NDC government will promote local production of hygiene products for women, including sanitary pads, through training and support for startups to support the free distribution of sanitary pads to schoolgirls, revive the textile industry by providing support to Akosombo Textiles Limited and Japan Textiles, which you mentioned, promote nightlife economy to enhance productivity and job creation, collaborate with research institutions to create new businesses, establish agro-processing and manufacturing fund to facilitate investment in the subsector, establish agro-processing factories in various districts in collaboration with the private sector, such as food processing in Lower Manya, cashew processes in Bono and Bono East regions, and Pito Brewery in the Upper East and Upper West regions, etc. Provide farmers cooperatives with small processing plants and mechanization. So this is the big one for manufacturing. So if you look at it, promote local production of hygiene products for women, revive textile industry, so focus on Akosombo Textile and Japan. I would love to sit down with the NDC on manufacturing. It's quite light, in my estimation, to have a conversation about this. But I also do understand that they have what they call the rural industrialization incentive, if I am not mistaken, which basically is to provide rural areas that need it with nascent industries for them to start afresh and grow. But it's also interesting that if you look at fruit processing in Lower Manya, so we grow a lot of fruit there, so it stays there, which is kind of what we are also asking for. So there's a bit of interest there. Now, if you go to the MPP, they spent a lot of time on accounting for what they have done in their manifesto. Selim, do you have that?
Yes, but I'm actually on the industrialization bit, the We Will part.
Okay, so you go
on the We Will part.
So they say that they will support made in Ghana products, including supporting the use of local raw materials. They also say they will continue to ensure stable and affordable power for industrial development. They will promote the manufacturing of digital services locally, they will continue to work with the private sector to establish more special economic zones for manufacturing and support them with last mile infrastructure services. Also finalize the establishment of the bauxite refinery to complete the aluminum value chain. I wonder what stage of the bauxite refinery we are at the moment, given all the matters that we are having at Tiwa and etc. Complete the establishment of an iron and steel industry through the Ghana Integrated Iron and Steel Development Corporation. Also continue the process of providing gas infrastructure to bauxite refinery sites, deepen and expand 1D1F in diversity and national coverage, process more cocoa and shea butter locally, deepen the automotive assembly industry, produce at least half of Ghana's sugar needs locally within the next 4 years. And producing Ghana's sugar needs, I mean, takes us directly or straight away to the Commander Sugar Factory. And the question is, what are we doing with that entity? We understand that, I mean, the trade minister said the last time that once the borders were open, the strategic investor, they have handed the project or the company will take over and operationalize it. We're only hoping that it works well. But saying that you want to produce at least half of Ghana's sugar needs locally within the next 4 years is quite huge. Promote the local production of pharmaceuticals. This, for me, I think is one of the low-hanging fruits, because we appear to be doing so well in the pharmaceutical industry. You know, the least push these industries are given, I'm sure we'll be able to produce a lot more for ourselves and even flood the sub-region with our pharmaceutical products, and that will be good money for Ghana. Also complete the process of establishing a fertilizer producing plant in Ghana, and for light manufacturing, renew the emphasis on component assembly, not just for automobiles, but for home appliances, including electric fans, refrigerators, air conditioners, to meet, you know, our growing domestic demand. When you look at this, you realize that a lot of the things will be to finalize, to complete, to continue, to deepen, to expand, which tells you that by this they're trying to communicate the fact that it's something they are doing, and it's not they are not now going to do it. And the issue is that if you say we will do, the question then will be, you told us you will do that already, so why are you now doing it? So even if a document is being prepared I mean, the point is that something has been done. So they will tell you they will fast track it, or they will finalize the plans or do something, which means that it's something already in progress.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, I look at some of these things and it just brings me, during the COVID period, Salom makes the great case about the hand sanitizer. I would love to look at the data for hand sanitizer imports this year as compared to what we made here, and then next year. So there's still time.
Yeah.
You know why I'm asking this? Because we showed that in wartime mode, we can make hand sanitizers for everybody in this country. In fact, there was an overflow of hand sanitizers. So my question would be, are we going to get a hand sanitizer kingpin locally? Because we do know that some of the large manufacturing companies were also making, those who were making alcohol, were doing
yeah,
exactly. But the point I'm making is,
pharmaceutical companies.
It will be interesting to see if Kasapreko suddenly becomes by next year or mid.
Adonko is doing one.
But I don't know. All of them were doing it. Fine.
Oh,
I'm just saying, I hope that by next year we could say that one of these companies is a major player in the hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer.
Even just domestically. So we don't import hand sanitizer.
And again.
Because like you said, I have an in-law who was making hand sanitizer and he was doing well. So I could expect that. Nobody have I this. I'm just saying. You see, it will be interesting to know something, something like that. You know, that is how you measure the growth. Okay, I always look at the Swami magazine. It was set up. It was set up in 1930.
Yeah.
Employs almost 200,000 people. One of the largest, you know, clusters for manufacturing, light manufacturing and whatever. Why is it still the way it is? It serves a purpose. I do understand that it serves a purpose. But no one can tell me that from 1930 to now, the state of Swami magazine in terms of what it can do and the dent it can make in an economy is what it is. It employs, Vivian, almost 200,000
a lot of people
in one place.
Yeah.
So I ask myself, if we really have an industrialization agenda, where in the manifestos can I read the one that affects perhaps the largest cluster of light manufacturing on the continent? Where is it? If there's a place in this country that employs 200,000 people, it is not something that you forget.
Yeah.
It's not something that becomes an afterthought. You see, and again, I get upset a bit by the lack of direct interest in the agencies we have set up to enhance our industrialization agenda. So CSIR and its subsidiaries, STEPRI and co. And it was one complaint I raised when we did the analysis of the manifesto in the health sector.
Yeah.
During COVID, one of the largest complaints was how we were struggling because all the major research was being paid for by foreign companies.
Yeah.
In fact, the INCAS one, £1 million, British government. All the big research projects that are ongoing, go and check who's paying for it. Some Canada be, some Britain be, some China be, some Germany be. Where's the one we pay for?
Please, we don't have any.
So, no, but the point is, how do you industrialize without your research institutions that have been set up to help you industrialize getting funding? So these things go hand in hand, one way or the other. If we don't stop the lip service to industrialization and the, how do I put this again? The political nitpicking of industrialization. We would do 3 years, 4 years,
and come back to the same
spot.
Okay, our time's up. Let me take these two messages quickly and then we say goodbye to you. This one says, really enjoying the discussion on industrialization in Ghana. As a country, our industrialization plans should be coordinated into our long-term development agenda. We also need to strategically leverage the advantages we have in terms of economic geography of Ghana. The palm tree alone can fetch Ghana millions. The discussants are great. Keep up the good work. Festus Times. He says he's an expert in international business and finance. Papa from Minnesota, USA says, Ghanaians praise Lee Kuan Yew of Malaysia, but criticize Nkrumah of dictatorship when Lee Kuan Yew's approach to governance was just like the same as Nkrumah. We lack understanding, he believes.
Let me just also say that is historically inaccurate.
Okay, tomorrow you come and explain your thesis for tomorrow. Explain why that is inaccurate. But gentlemen, thank you so much. Godfred Akoto-Boafo heads our current affairs team here at City TV and City FM. And Salam Adanu also heads features and articles and decks here at City FM and City TV. My name is Vivian Kailoko. The repeat of this show is at 10 p.m. tonight. Do make some time to watch again. Goodbye.